At my brother's wedding, he shouted, "Get out of here. She doesn't want to see you here." His wife stood behind him smirking and said, "Losers like you shouldn't bring bad luck to other people's happy day." I quietly walked out without saying a word. The next day, they called and demanded return the apartment. I paused, then said 3 words that left them speechless. "My name is Vivian Stone. I'm 32, and I'm a real estate agent in Omaha, Nebraska. The job has given me stability, good income, and the chance to own property on my own terms. For years, I've been the reliable one in the family, the sister who shows up, helps out, and never makes a fuss. But in our house, reliability never got me the same attention my younger brother did. He was always the focus, the one everyone rallied around, while I stayed in the background handling things quietly. My boyfriend has been the only person who truly sees how uneven it all was, yet I kept going to family events thinking it might change someday. That wedding turned out to be the breaking point. The way they treated me there and what they expected from me afterward with the apartment I'd worked hard to own forced me to draw a line I'd never drawn before. If you've ever felt like the invisible sibling in your own family or waited for the moment to finally stand up for yourself, hit that like button and subscribe. You won't want to miss how this one ends. Looking back, I should have seen the signs years earlier. Growing up, the way Mom and Dad treated us couldn't have been more different. They gave Maverick every excuse when he messed up, celebrated his every little win like it was major, and always made sure he felt special no matter what. I learned quickly to stay out of the way. As the older sister, I took on extra chores, kept my problems to myself, and made sure things ran smoothly so no one had to worry about me. It wasn't open favoritism that hurt the most. It was the quiet assumption that I didn't need the same encouragement or attention because I was the strong one. That imbalance carried right into our adult lives. While Maverick drifted through part-time jobs and leaned on our parents for help with bills or moves, I threw myself into real estate. The Omaha market rewarded hard work, and I built a solid client base through long hours and reliable service. When a portion of the inheritance from our grandparents came through, I combined it with my own savings to buy a clean 2-bedroom apartment downtown. The place had high ceilings, updated kitchen, and a view that made it feel like a real step up. I left it mostly unfurnished or rented it out short-term on Airbnb during my work trips. No one had ever stayed there permanently. It was mine completely, a symbol of what I'd achieved, without relying on family handouts. Maverick took a different path. He lived at home longer than most, with Mom and Dad covering expenses while he experimented with ideas. Eventually, he met his wife, Nova Stone, who had the same passion for social media. They teamed up on content creation, posting about daily life, sponsored products, and couple goals that attracted a growing audience. Their income became steady enough to move out, and suddenly family conversations centered on their latest collaboration or viral post. Mom and Dad shared everything, proudly turning their successes into the main topic at every gathering. My cousin Piper Brooks went through her own struggles around that time. She hit a financial low after a failed venture, and Maverick and Nova weren't kind about it in passing comments at holidays. They implied she hadn't planned well enough or hustled like they did. Piper recovered, steadily landing work in event planning where her organizational skills shone. She's thriving now, but those earlier judgments lingered. Everything shifted when Maverick proposed to Nova on a sponsored getaway they documented for their followers. A few months after the engagement, the invitations started rolling in for the pre-wedding events. The engagement party was held at a rooftop bar downtown, the kind of place with string lights and overpriced drinks that Nova loved posting about. Weston and I arrived on time, dressed nicely, ready to celebrate. We mingled for a bit, but it quickly became clear the focus was entirely on Maverick and Nova. Mom and Dad hovered around them, introducing Nova to relatives, as if she was already part of some royal family, while Weston and I ended up standing off to the side with drinks in hand. People came over to congratulate the couple, snapping photos constantly, yet hardly anyone included us in the shots or even asked how we were doing. I smiled through it, making small talk when needed, but the message felt obvious. This night revolved around them, and we were just background. Then came Maverick's bachelor party, thrown at a local brewery with games and a big group of his friends. The invitation came to me late, a casual text from Maverick a couple days before, almost like an afterthought. Weston encouraged me to go anyway, saying it might be nice to show support one more time. So I showed up, bringing a small gift and trying to blend in. The evening was loud, full of toasts and stories about Maverick's wilder days that everyone laughed off. At one point, I stepped away to grab another drink and overheard Nova talking to a group near the bar. She was laughing, saying how I was always so serious, too focused on work to really let loose and enjoy life like they did. Maverick chimed in, agreeing that I probably wouldn't have fun at something like this if it wasn't planned out perfectly. They didn't know I was close enough to hear, and I didn't confront them. I just finished my drink quietly and left a little early, telling Weston later how those words stung more than I wanted to admit. All through this time, Nova kept posting stories online about the wedding plans. She'd share mood boards with crystal chandeliers, designer flowers, and venue ideas that looked straight out of a magazine spread. Her captions gushed about creating the perfect day, tagging vendors and hinting at luxury details that would make everyone jealous. Followers commented excitedly, assuming everything was locked in and paid for. But from the bits Mom mentioned in passing, I knew several deposits were still outstanding. Maverick and Nova were stretching their budget with sponsor hopes, prioritizing the appearance over the actual commitments. Weston noticed it too when we scrolled together one evening, pointing out how risky that approach seemed, though I brushed it off as their style. The build-up continued with bridal fittings and planning sessions that filled the family chat, always centering on what Nova wanted next. About 3 months before the wedding, Nova's posts took on a new tone. One evening, Weston and I were relaxing on the couch when my phone lit up with notifications from her account. She had shared a lengthy caption thanking my amazing sister-in-law Vivian and family for the incredible support. Can't wait to start our new chapter in our future home. The photos showed a sleek downtown apartment interior that looked strikingly similar to mine, with similar layout flooring and even the same style of windows. She didn't tag me directly or mention money, but the implication hung there for all her followers to see. Comments flooded in almost immediately, congratulating them on the generous family help and assuming the place would be their starter home after the honeymoon. Thousands of likes rolled in, along with messages asking how they scored such a spot in Omaha's competitive market. The next morning, Mom called while I was heading to a client showing. She sounded excited at first, going on about how wonderful the post was and how proud she felt seeing the family come together. Then the conversation shifted. She mentioned the wedding costs adding up faster than expected, with final payments due soon for the venue and catering. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "your dad and I think it's only fair if you chip in a little more since you're doing so well, and it's for your brother. Family supports each other through big moments like this. It's what sisters do." Dad got on the line briefly to echo the same sentiment, reminding me how Maverick had always looked up to me as the responsible one. A day later, Maverick texted directly, linking Nova's post and adding a heart emoji. "Thanks for being so awesome, sis. This means everything to us." No question mark, no real ask, just the assumption I'd step up because that's what I'd always done. Weston read it over my shoulder and shook his head slightly, suggesting I not rush into anything. I replied politely but vaguely, saying I was glad they were excited. The pressure kept building in subtle ways. Group chat messages from Mom shared vendor invoices with comments about stretching the budget thin. Nova added stories showing dress alterations and cake tastings, always circling back to gratitude for family backing us up. Followers kept engaging, some even messaging me privately to say how generous I was being. I muted notifications for a while, feeling the weight of expectations I'd never agreed to. From then on, I responded less often, keeping answers short when family reached out about plans. 1 month before the big day, the first signs of trouble appeared. An email from the florist landed in the family group chat politely reminding Maverick and Nova that the final balance was overdue and services might need to be adjusted if not settled soon. Within hours, the photographer followed with a similar message noting that without the remaining deposit, the date could no longer be held exclusively. Maverick brushed it off at first in his replies, promising payment was coming, but the tone shifted quickly as more vendors chimed in. The caterer mentioned potential menu reductions, and the venue coordinator sent a formal notice about late fees accruing on the outstanding amount. The calls started that same week. Nova rang me during my lunch break, sounding flustered as she explained how a few sponsors had delayed payments and things were tighter than expected. She asked if I knew anyone in the industry who might offer a discount or flexible terms, given my real estate contacts often overlapped with event people. I listened quietly, offering vague suggestions about checking references, but didn't commit to anything specific. Weston overheard part of it later and raised an eyebrow, wondering aloud why they hadn't budgeted more carefully from the start. Dad phoned the next evening after work, his voice calm but pointed. He talked about how excited everyone was and how unfortunate timing could ruin such a special occasion. Then he suggested I reach out to a couple of vendors I'd worked with on property closings, implying my professional relationships could smooth things over. Mom joined in on speaker, adding that it would mean so much to Maverick if the day stayed perfect. They both stressed pulling together as a family during challenges like this. Maverick texted repeatedly over the following days, sending screenshots of the vendor emails and asking directly if I could make a few calls, since I was good at negotiating deals. Nova followed up with voice notes thanking me in advance for any help and mentioning how stressed Maverick felt. In one of those conversations, when I finally picked up, Nova casually brought up post-wedding plans. She said Maverick would need a nice place to settle into married life, and that using my apartment temporarily made total sense, as if the idea had already been settled. The messages kept coming, a mix of updates on resolved minor issues and fresh pleas for assistance on the bigger ones. Over the next few weeks, I played along carefully. When Nova called again to update on a vendor who had agreed to extend their deadline, I responded with encouragement, saying it sounded like things were turning around and that I was happy to hear it. Maverick sent a thankful voice message after I suggested a backup photographer from a past client referral, even though I never followed through with an introduction. Mom left voicemails expressing relief that the family was pulling together, and I texted back short replies like, "Glad to help where I can," without promising anything concrete. Weston watched the whole thing unfold from the sidelines occasionally, asking if I was sure about keeping up the supportive act, but he trusted my judgment and stayed quiet when I said I needed time to sort it out. Behind the scenes, I started organizing everything related to the apartment. I pulled together the original purchase documents, title deed, and closing statements from years back, scanning them into a secure folder on my computer. Any correspondence about short-term rentals went in there too, making sure every detail showed sole ownership in my name alone. I even dug up old emails with the building management confirming no long-term tenants or sublets had ever been approved. It felt methodical, almost therapeutic, putting all the proof in one place after years of letting family assumptions slide. One afternoon between showings, I scheduled a consultation with a real estate attorney I'd worked with on commercial deals. We met over coffee near his office, and I explained the situation without naming names. At first, just the hypothetical of family expecting access to property I'd paid for independently. He confirmed that without any written agreement or consistent occupancy, I had full rights to decide who stayed there, and a simple formal letter would protect me if push came to shove. The advice was straightforward, no gray areas, and it lifted a weight I hadn't fully acknowledged carrying. Piper reached out around the same time after hearing through mutual contacts in the event world. A couple vendors had asked her privately about Maverick and Nova's payment history on previous collaborations. She kept her responses factual, confirming only what she knew from shared industry circles, that one job had dragged on longer than usual for final settlement. Nothing exaggerated, just honest answers when directly questioned enough to make people think twice without her pushing any agenda. The days blurred with more surface-level check-ins from the family, each one met with my measured reassurance. The day of the wedding finally arrived. Weston and I had talked about it the night before, weighing whether showing up was worth it after everything. He felt strongly that skipping it entirely might give the family more ammunition to paint me as the difficult one, so we agreed to go, keep things brief, and leave early if needed. I chose a simple dress, nothing flashy, and we drove to the venue in near silence, both sensing the tension that had been building for months. The ceremony was set at a garden hall on the outskirts of Omaha, with white chairs arranged in rows and floral arches framing the aisle. Guests milled around taking photos as we parked, many of them relatives I hadn't seen in years, or friends of Maverick and Nova from their online circle. Mom spotted us first near the entrance and waved us over with a quick hug, whispering how glad she was we came before hurrying off to help with last-minute seating. Dad nodded from across the lawn, busy greeting arrivals, his expression a mix of relief and distraction. As the start time approached, Maverick and Nova made their way through the crowd, posing for pictures and accepting congratulations. Up close, the strain showed on their faces despite the smiles. Maverick adjusted his tie repeatedly, glancing at his phone every few minutes, while Nova smoothed her dress and scanned the setup with sharp eyes, pointing out a misplaced arrangement to a coordinator. A couple of minor delays rippled through the schedule, like the string quartet starting late or the officiant running behind, adding to the underlying edginess no one acknowledged out loud. We found seats toward the back, blending in as the processional music began. The ceremony itself went smoothly enough, vows exchanged under the arch, with applause breaking out at the kiss. During the reception line afterward, Weston and I waited our turn to offer brief well wishes. When we reached them, Maverick's expression hardened almost immediately. He stepped forward, voice raised just enough for nearby guests to hear, and shouted that I should get out, that Nova didn't want me there, spoiling the vibe. Nova stood right behind him, arms crossed with a satisfied smirk, adding loudly that people like me, always so negative, shouldn't bring bad energy to someone else's perfect day. A few heads turned, murmurs starting among the closest onlookers, but no one intervened. I felt Weston's hand tighten on my arm, steady and calm. Without a word, I turned and walked back down the aisle we'd just come through, him matching my steps. We left the venue quietly, got in the car, and drove away as the celebration continued behind us. Just a few days after the wedding, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Maverick called first, sounding rushed as he explained they were back from their short honeymoon and ready to move things forward. He went on about how the apartment would be perfect for starting married life, mentioning plans they'd apparently made long ago for furniture deliveries and utilities setup. Nova took the phone midway, her tone bright but insistent, asking when would be good to swing by with the moving truck, since everything was lined up. They spoke as if my agreement was already in place, brushing past any need for discussion. Mom followed up that afternoon with a voicemail full of disappointment, saying how sad it was that I hadn't stayed longer at the reception, and that families should stick together through misunderstandings. She hinted at the apartment again, suggesting it would help smooth things over if I let them use it while they got settled. Dad sent a text later, short and direct, asking me to call back about the living arrangement we talked about. The messages piled up quickly, a mix of excitement about their new chapter and subtle pressure to confirm the plans they'd assumed. Weston sat with me as I listened to them, all his expression steady, while I decided how to respond. When Maverick rang again the next morning, I picked up and waited for him to finish outlining their timeline. Then I said calmly, "It's my apartment." The line went quiet for a moment before he stammered something about confusion and family expectations. I repeated the words once more, clear, and even then ended the call. That same day, I drafted a formal email, copying everyone involved, attaching scanned ownership documents for clarity. It stated politely but firmly that no arrangements for occupancy had ever been agreed upon, and the property would remain under my sole control. I mailed a printed copy certified as well, covering every base the attorney had recommended. Replies came fast: shock from Mom, frustration from Maverick, silence from Nova at first, but no one could point to a single written promise or payment that changed the facts. Over the following weeks, word spread quietly in their circles. A few smaller sponsors Nova had lined up paused collaborations after vendors shared experiences with delayed payments. Her follower count dipped as some unfollowed amid the low-key drama, nothing explosive but enough to sting. The family chat filled with messages blaming me for not being more forgiving, yet they had no legal ground to stand on and eventually backed off. I blocked the numbers that kept pushing and removed myself from the group entirely. For the first time, the constant pull from their side stopped leaving space I hadn't realized I'd been missing. Weston and I focused on our own routines, weekends hiking nearby trails or trying new spots around Omaha without checking for family approval. The quiet felt strange at first, then peaceful, like finally breathing fully after holding it in for years. Looking back on it all now, the real consequence for them wasn't just losing access to the apartment or a few deals, it was facing the limits of taking people for granted. Some bridges burn because they're built on one side only, and walking away can be the healthiest choice you'll ever make. Thank you for sticking with me through this whole story. If any part resonated with you or brought up your own experiences, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you know someone dealing with similar family dynamics, share this with them. Take care, and see you in the next one.